Just looking at the rate, it does hide a lot of things. The huge swaths of pupils who drop out before they get to matric, the actual pass rate. Do you agree with commentators that it's not an accurate guide to the quality of education in South Africa?
Absolutely. I think you've got to look well beyond the numbers. I think the fact that the rate has dropped is not as problematic as the depth that we see in the people who come through the system. I know that there's a big issue around what the pass rate is, for example, the pass mark is. So in maths, I think around half of the people are passing, but if you count the number of people who are passing at above 50%, it's probably about half of that, about a quarter. So I think it's to do with the quality rather than the headline number, and clearly there's a lot of work to be done.
And you're not a fan of maths literacy?
This is an interesting issue. There are some people clearly for whom it's important to have something rather than nothing. The problem with maths literacy is that it becomes too easy an option. So schools, for example, in seeking to get better marks and to show better performance, may actually encourage people to do maths literacy who could easily have done mathematics itself. And the problem, of course, is it cuts many people off from any opportunities in a number of different areas. And you've mentioned about business. I think the big issue around business is flexibility. There are some subjects, some disciplines that you'll never catch up with in later life. And it's important at least to have a critical mass of understanding around those subjects so that you can keep your knowledge fresh. But if you've never really got into them, never really attained a certain standard, it becomes very difficult to train people and to make them flexible in the workplace.
It's hard to catch up, and I guess it's hard for business to say that's okay, because you need people with those skills in the first place.
Absolutely. I mean, business, of course, it's not so much the specific things that are taught. It's an attitude of mind, a confidence about what you can achieve and what you can do. And I think the idea of the cognitive approach rather than the numerical, just number crunching, I think is very important. But there is a fact that if there are two different people that you can employ, and they're both going to do the same job, but one of them is more flexible, you could move them into something else later on and they'll be able to adjust. And I think that's what employers are looking at. How flexible are the people who come? And those, for example, who haven't done any science, done no maths at all, are simply not as flexible to move around. They may just end up in certain parts of the business and may struggle to improve their skills as life goes on.
I want to ask you what you think business's role is, but first an opinion from you, Themba. A lot of parents were disadvantaged by apartheid, so it's hard to help with homework. You have kids impoverished, facing insurmountable challenges, never mind load shedding at the moment. Then you go to schools, infrastructure problems, huge overcrowding.
Absolutely.
Is that the problem here, or is it policy issues that we should be looking at, or is it that attitude? Do we not have a culture that encourages excellence and surmounting those problems?
The problems you talk about are really deep and very severe. But I think that one of the things that's got to happen is that we need to set ourselves much higher benchmarks. If we think that, for example, I know that it might be a controversial issue, but the 30% pass mark idea, or teachers who think it's okay that only half of the people pass. I think the benchmarking is important. We've got to benchmark ourselves at a level which tells us that we've got to work hard. And I think one of the things is we relax too quickly. And I think that's one thing. But the second thing is that we really don't take education as seriously as we should. I mean, there are some countries where people go to school after school, and they're constantly pushed by their parents. Now, I belong to a generation where our parents really said, education is it. That's what we can give to you. And perhaps we need to go back to that. The teaching, I mean, teachers, some of them haven't had the access that they should have in terms of content. But once again, it's the attitude of the teachers. And a teacher with a really good attitude can be a spark, a catalyst to make a difference in a whole school.
I've heard that. Now, you've looked at graduates in finance and I'm sure in actuarialism, whatever you call it, for a number of years.
Yes.
I'm sure you've interacted with a lot of young people. Do you notice any trends? And even if we have a problem, say in high school, once they get into university, are those problems fixed? Are they coming out on the other side with a good quality degree? Or are you noticing that the universities have to stoop down a little bit to lower their standards as well?
That's actually a very good question. What I think we're finding, particularly in our profession, is the universities are really making a big effort. They recognize that there are problems in terms of people coming through the school system who on paper have good marks, but when they actually start performing in their first month or two or three, they suddenly find these people actually are not where they should be. And they've made lots of efforts in developing such people. The programs have embedded certain extra courses, and some of them actually have encouraged people, for example, to go for an extra year, even if it takes a bit longer, but at least people are better off in the end. So we have seen this issue. I think that what still comes out of the graduate system generally in the areas that I'm looking at, the finance and commerce, I think the standards are still pretty strong. I think one of the big problems, though, is not so much people going into the world of standard business, people working at Sanlam, people working in the banks, because they can be trained. There's a whole system of training and capacity building. But people who go into smaller companies who don't really have the skills, they don't have the capacity to train. And so it's not just purely about those kind of businesses. The economy has to be much broader. And those are the people who are failing, the people who don't end up where they can be trained by their corporate employer.
And we want small businesses to create the jobs and mop up that unemployment.
Exactly.
So let's talk about big business then. You said they are training, upskilling, yes. But surely there's so much more that can be done. I spoke to a young entrepreneur once in the studio, and he was passionate about it, saying business can't say there's a skills mismatch and you're not giving us what we need without getting involved. Could there be much more proactivism?
I would like to see far more proactivism, if you like, but certainly at the university level. I think that many companies literally come in to recruit. And at the moment, the bigger companies with the stronger brands are able to do this because people, they manage to get the best, the people who've been best prepared. And what tends to happen is the people who aren't as strong, but who could, with some investment, really make a difference, are being left behind. So I really think that this shouldn't just be a competitive issue. It should be an issue of national priority. One of the issues that's discussed a lot and is very controversial is the whole thing of, for example, what you pay for people who come into the world of work. This thing of differential pay for young people and so on. I think that if we marry that kind of differentiation with a strong commitment to training, then in effect the companies are almost spending the same amount. They might pay the person a bit less, but they're building their capacity, so their capacity to improve in future years is increased.
And your salary will go up.
Absolutely.
So it's a short-term
So I'd
sacrifice.
like to see that discussion moving away from the pure number to what they can do with these young people. The problem with being out of the world of work is that you lose out not just on money, not just on being able to support your family, not just in terms of your self-worth, but you lose so many other things that happen in the world of work, including training, including being challenged by your peers, including working with people of different levels. There's a whole stack, there's a whole world within the world of work that people miss out on. And I'd like to see more people in the world of work
and only approach the field.
They can benefit from all of that.
So that's supportive of some labour flexibility. What about these interventions, Adopt to School, and business does get involved, helping with technology, with textbooks. Have you seen anything really interesting? And I have to ask you to be brief on that final answer.
Yes, I've seen a number of instances of schools that have really turned around. The main thing is South Africa has many problems, and sometimes we just despair. But I think that if we concentrate and we believe in catalysis, you find something that can be catalytic within and create change within business, within the community. And I think that's what's happened. We've seen people either focus on a headmaster or on a school governing body and focus enough attention and effort and capacity to make that difference.
So the little changes can
That's what I'd
escalate.
like to see. I'd like to see more catalytic actions being
Thank
implemented.
you so much for being with us tonight, Sanlam Executive Themba Gamedze. And we roll out with this. Rolls-Royce motor cars sold a record number of